we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello, and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I'm your host, Kim Miller-Hershon, and do I have a surprise for you today? So instead of one guest, I have two guests today. So I have Garrett Sutton and I have Ted Sutton. And Garrett is the dad and Ted is the son. And let me tell you a little bit about them before I hand it over to them. So Garrett is the founder of corporate director, Sutton Law founder, and award-winning author of 11 books, asset protection attorney, and Rich Dad's 25-year legal architect of business protection and trusted advisor to Robert Kiyosaki, who is the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Ted is a partner and asset protection attorney at Corporate Direct, working with his father, Garrett. Ted delivers high-value legal solutions primarily to entrepreneurs, real estate investors, and digital asset investors in all 50 states, which in and of itself is amazing. All right, gentlemen. So to start with, I want to ask you about a shared passion that the two of you have, which is skiing. So tell me a little bit about how you got started skiing and what that is for you.
Kim, thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be with you today. We live in Reno, Nevada, and Lake Tahoe is right above us. There are 14 ski areas in our region, and it's pretty easy. We could be skiing in 45 minutes. In the winter, when it's cold, it's nice to have an activity. And so I started skiing, and then when we're raising Ted and the other kids, we would get them up early in the morning, and they didn't like it at first, but they took a love to skiing. And Ted raced competitively. His high school won the Nevada State Championship one year. So Ted's a pretty good skier. I have to tell him to wait at the bottom for me because I don't get down the hill as fast as Ted does.
Yeah, but you also created that monster.
I did.
He dragged me up to the ski hill starting at age 2. He'd wake me up at 6 a.m. when I wanted to sleep in, and he'd put me in ski clothes and drag me up there. But
now you love it.
Now I love it, and yeah, it eventually paid off.
Very nice. Now, is boarding a dirty word to you, or do you snowboard as well?
I do not snowboard. I'm not going to say it's a dirty word just because there may be snowboarders who are listening.
But we have some pretty good snowboarder jokes. But anyway, we won't tell them here.
I know pure skiers can be like pretty not fans of necessarily of snowboarders.
There is that element to it.
Yes. Yeah. Very fun. All right. Let's jump right in. And Garrett, let's start with you on this one because I got a plan. I got a plan for this.
All right. Good.
Okay. So what's one piece of conventional business wisdom that you followed early on, only to later realize that it really didn't work for you?
Early on, I'm a lawyer. I graduated from UC Law San Francisco. And early on, you're a young lawyer in a law firm, and they want you to bill for every minute, and they want you to bill 70, 80 minutes an hour. And I didn't like that format. But at the start, it was all about billable hours. And then I was able to move into my own practice, became very fortunate to become associated with Robert Kiyosaki. And instead of billing by the hour and by the minute, we charge a flat fee for our services. Everybody knows what it's going to cost up front. We don't have arguments about, I was on the phone for 20 minutes instead of 5 minutes or vice versa. Right. And so I really enjoy the flat fee model. It just makes life a lot easier. And it also allows the client to know what they're getting into, to know what to expect. Instead of a lot of people go to an attorney and they're nervous. Is this going to cost $1,000 or $10,000? I just never liked that model.
And I think even you, as not just a lawyer, but in the business of law, I think it's interesting to look at what your expectations were of how it was going to be, and then how you were able to flip that into something that worked better for you. Also, there is the point at which you have to be efficient with your time,
Right.
right?
Well, the clients want you to be efficient with your time. And that's why we can do the flat fee and they know what it's going to cost. And so if I'm slow, it doesn't matter because they've paid a flat fee for the service.
Right. Here's where my mind was going, because I want to ask Ted in a minute, because he grew up with a dad who was basically owned a law firm, but was more entrepreneurial. So, what kind of household and expectations, Garrett, did you have in the beginning?
In our household, Ted's mom is a doctor, I'm a lawyer, but we didn't put any pressure on the kids to be a doctor, a lawyer, or anything else. We wanted them to go to school. Ted went to the University of Utah and was a mining engineer. He graduated with a degree in mining engineering, of all things. So we never put the pressure on him to be a professional or to be this or that. So he came to the decision to be a lawyer all on his own.
So, Ted, let's bring you into the conversation here. What do you think? Again, you are more at the beginning of your career than at the certainly at the end of your career. But what expectations did you have going into this, and has any of that shifted for you?
Yeah, I think when it comes to becoming a lawyer, I think I expected that I'd only be doing a narrow set of work. I thought I'd only be doing mainly things that related to business law. And I kind of thought that would be my lane. But in reality, what I've learned is that a lot of things have shifted. We started to get into estate planning a little bit more. We started helping different types of clients, whether they be crypto investors, other small business owners. And so I think the big thing that I learned over the last few years is that you're not going to be doing one set thing. And especially if you work with your dad, he has his own firm. It's not like you're in a traditional big law firm where you're only going to be doing this one thing. You're going to be doing a lot more different things, and you're going to learn on the job. And so that was probably the biggest thing that I learned just coming into it. But I think my expectations for being a lawyer, a lot of it, there's some things that I think where I was right about, just because when it comes to drafting contracts, helping clients, putting out content, writing pieces of content, that's stayed the same. But there's other areas of the law that I thought I would never get into, and sure enough, I've done them.
Okay. And just because your dad mentioned it, I think the audience and myself are dying to know mining engineering. Can you give us a little insight into that potential career choice?
Totally. So I always liked earth science as a kid. I was always big into geography and maps and landscapes and things of that nature. And so I didn't really, when I went to college, I didn't have a set major figured out. Actually, my first semester at the University of Utah, I studied biomedical engineering just because my mom's a doctor, a lot of her siblings are doctors. And I did that for one semester and I absolutely hated it. I said, this is not for me. It was hard, it was boring, it wasn't interesting. And so I pivoted and I switched to mining engineering. And the summer before I graduated, I had the privilege of working at a mine in northern Chile, middle of the Atacama Desert. It's the driest place on earth. And while I enjoyed my experience there for 3 months, it made me realize I didn't want to make a career out of it, just because while I liked the material and I liked the workers and I liked everyone in the mining industry, you're working very remote jobs and you have to be away from home for a while. And in my heart of hearts, I knew it wasn't for me. So I graduated and then I sat with my parents and they convinced me to go to law school. with the idea that I could take over the practice and eventually push him out. Just over.
That's not the plan.
Well, it is a little bit. It's like a peaceful,
Yeah.
transition. It's not, but I phase in, he phases out. He will be a mentor and an advisor and all the rest. But I figured at that juncture, it was best for me to just pivot and go to law school. And ever since that moment, I haven't looked back since.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. All right, Garrett, you've had a lot of success, right? You've got all these books that you've written. You worked with Robert Kiyosaki. You've got a law firm, right? Like you really have had a lot of success. So, what is one thing that people assume that you've got figured out on the outside, and yet you still wrestle with it on the inside?
This used to be an issue much more early in my career, Kim, because you graduate from law school and people assume that you know all about the law, but you don't. You have to go into an area and specialize. There are not many generalists anymore.
Yeah.
And so then people will come to you with an issue or a problem. And as a young lawyer, you want to take it all in. You don't know. You talk about the imposter syndrome, and you don't know it, but you still want to take it. I'm old enough now that if something comes in and I don't know it and I don't want to do it, I just say no. I send them to another attorney, but not necessarily him,
Sometimes
for,
me, yeah.
but for a personal injury case, for a family law
Right.
case, for an easement case, I will send that off. And I take great comfort in that because back in the day, you tried to pretend that you know it and it was awkward. So now it's pleasant to be able to say, I'm sorry, I can't take that. And here's a referral for you. So it makes your life a lot less stressful.
Absolutely. I've got one early client that I like to call her the gift that keeps on giving. It's one of those clients that this is not a great client for me, right? But you're hungry and
Yep.
you're in the beginning of your business, and it was a situation where other people were like going, "Oh my God, Kim, she needs help, right? You need to help her." Right? So took it anyway. Biggest mistake. Just, oh my gosh. So, yeah. So, I think you're right, Garrett, like that opportunity to really comfortably say I'm not your person. It's a nice place to be.
Yep. I wrote a whole book on this called Toxic Client. And 80% of your problems come from 20% of your clients. And so it's the old 80-20 rule. And you're better off just sending that bad penny down the road.
Yeah, I would agree. And I do think it's interesting. And I imagine even between the two of you that this might come up is that, so I always like to say, I like the squirrely ones. I just like people who are a little surly and a little right. And with all due respect and honoring who they are, I just happen to really like working with those people. Not across the board, but as I like to say, my example of that is, and it just feels like 1,000 years ago at this point, but I, like when my kids were younger, I did some substitute teaching, right, in the school district. So I could have picked wherever I wanted to go, and I chose to be a substitute in middle school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm just like, you are my people. Oh, you want to
Yeah.
change names? How funny.
Yeah.
I see you, right? So, Ted, do you think, I'm curious if you feel like kind of working with your dad, do you feel like you will avoid, or maybe you've already had the circumstance where you feel like maybe you can avoid some of the mistakes that clearly we made? Or do you feel like everybody has to make mistakes, right? So, talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So I think I can avoid some of them. And that's mainly because when he started the business, he made mistakes on his own. And a lot of times I'm fortunate enough to tap into his expertise. So whenever there's a doubt about something, I can go to him and he can give me an answer just because he has more experience in the field. and he's had missteps back then that he's learned from, and then with that he can provide the wisdom. So I think there I can avoid it, but in a lot of cases you kind of have to struggle through certain problems on your own. You get clients who have specific problems that he didn't necessarily face when he was a younger lawyer, and so you kind of have to do your research on your own, get your own answers, and provide sound counsel in that regard. And so I've had a few missteps here and there, but it happens. So I think ultimately, because I could tap into his expertise, I can avoid some problems. But because so many things are changing and you need to stay up to date with all these laws, I think with that, you kind of have to do trial by fire.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. All right. What is the biggest challenge that you have right now in the business?
For me, we're always looking for good people, and the talent pool, it's out there, but there are a lot of people who are just addicted to this thing, and you come here to work, not to text people. Yeah, funny thing. And we are always on the lookout for people who have a good work ethic, who can deal with people, who know how to format a letter. The skill sets that we're looking for, I guess, I got to be honest, are harder to find. That's a constant issue for us, Kim.
Yeah, makes sense. And so, Ted, is your dad still day to day leading the firm, or you have managerial responsibilities as well as client work?
Yeah. So it's kind of a neutral ground when it comes to the day-to-day stuff. I mean, when I started, I wasn't doing as many day-to-day things,
Sure.
but slowly but surely I'm easing into it. I think we still make decisions together. And if he has to take off on a trip or travel for whatever reason, I'm comfortable filling in for him. Because there's a time where he filmed a movie in Kentucky for a month. And so that was right when I was getting started. And I was a little uncomfortable then. He takes off for a week or two at a time, and I'm comfortable filling in now. So we're in this transition zone where he ultimately has the final say, but I have a little bit more input than I did in the past. And I think that transition will just continue over the years, but I'll definitely tap into his wisdom, like when I'm fully in control.
Right. You raised a good son because he's already like, I'm going to tap into his wisdom. Like, how incredible is it that your son sees that you do have wisdom, right? I think that is notable.
Well, thank you. His mom had a huge influence in all this, of course. Great.
I know that. I
Yeah,
haven't
you know
met her. I know
that.
that.
Yeah. But it's interesting. You read stories, and not many kids want to take over their parents' business.
Right.
And so it's more and more rare that the kids want to stick
that's true.
around and take over the parents' business. So
Yeah.
I'm glad Ted has decided to do that.
Yeah. I think that is very true. I think that it is really much less common,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And the other thing, just to mention, we have all these private equity companies calling us up wanting to buy us. And I've had 5 different companies call to buy us up. And I'm not going to sell out to a private equity firm. They're going to squeeze every nickel out and not pay attention to our clients. So it's really great that I don't have to sell the business to someone who's not going to take care of the clients that I've worked with 20 years.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't a law firm, but I have a client who was working at a tech firm that got sold. And the founders really and truly just wanted money, period. So they entertained the offer with the most amount of money that they got for themselves and just decimated the staff and the everything else. They just didn't care about anybody but themselves. And
Yeah,
it's really
that
pretty
ruins the
icky.
company culture.
Yeah, it's really pretty icky. I guess it is also, it is what it is. It is the reality.
Yep.
And like you said, you are just so lucky that Ted wanted to do that, right? Because he could still be a lawyer and say, I don't want anything to do with your practice.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. But the thing is, I went into law school kind of knowing that I would take over the business. I didn't plan on going to law school to join a big firm or to be a courtroom warrior or to handle personal injury cases or anything like that. I think for me, it was just the best path forward that put me in the position to help the most amount of people. I didn't necessarily want to be a big trial attorney. I just wanted to take over the family business and help the people that he's helped. So pretty much everything that private equity's not doing right now.
There you go. Yeah. All right. Usually I ask this question, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift? But here I want to ask it a little bit differently. What's one unconventional thing that's helped you grow your business? And I do have something very particular in mind here, so help me out.
Well, my thing is writing these books. A book is the best business card there is. And I became very fortunate to become associated with Robert Kiyosaki. And I've written 8 books in his series and 3 others. And I enjoy writing. And I don't think it's unconventional anymore to write a book and get clients from that. There's a cottage industry that will write a book for you in order to get you clients. I don't know how it works for everybody, but certainly being associated with Robert Kiyosaki, those are coattails that I'm just so fortunate that I got to ride with. So it has been good. We still get people who have called in and read the book, and there's a connection you make with the author when you read a book. And it's so funny, this one fellow from Germany, he called in and he wanted to know me because he read the book and just felt I was the one to help him with his corporation. And I'm sure others haven't articulated that, but have called because of that. And so the book is a really great business card.
Yeah. All right, Ted, will you answer that question, please?
Yes, I will. So I think the biggest thing is, and when it comes to an unconventional habit or mindset shift. So being in law school, one of the things I notice is that there's a lot of people who have the scarcity mindset. There's a lot of people who view business and life as a zero-sum game where it's I win, you lose, and we can't work together. And there's a lot of people in the legal field and in other industries that adopt that mentality where it's all scarce, there's only a finite amount of resources. But I've been fortunate enough to be associated with my dad, who's with Robert. And in those circles, it's more about the abundance mindset to where there's an infinite number of people that can help you with your business, your life, mental, emotional, spiritual matters. And so that's been really helpful. And because I've adopted that mindset, I think it's allowed me to become a better leader and become a better business owner, just because there's a lot of people out there who can help you and you can really enter into win-win situations with other people. It's not a win and lose situation. You really can't have win-win situations with other people. And so I think that has been the biggest thing.
Ted, I pitched you a softball there and you went off on some other thing. Yeah, will you tell us about your book?
Okay, yeah, so the reason I did that is because I wanted to do something different than my dad. But
this is the same.
In addition, it's good to have the abundance mindset, but it is also good to have a book of your own. And so over the last 3 years, I worked on this project. And the whole gist of the project is that it simplifies the law for middle and high school kids, just because legal knowledge is not taught in schools, much like financial knowledge isn't taught in schools.
Right.
So it simplifies everything I learned in law school, and it's narrated by a friendly dog named Greenback. So it's not an attorney teaching it to you. It's not a law professor. It's a dog. And people love dogs much more than they like attorneys for obvious reasons. And so, again, it simplifies everything that I learned. And Greenback teaches a story to the kids. In his family, they adopt a kid who goes through a lot, and he deals with all these different areas of the law throughout the time he's with them. And so it's going to be a great resource just because these important topics are not taught in schools, yet they affect our everyday lives. And so it's called Greenback's Book of Law. And you can go to greenbacksbookoflaw.com to buy a copy today.
And there's also
There
a
you go.
card game coming that once you read the book with your friends, then you can play a card game and really learn the law. We learn our best through games.
Absolutely.
And Ted has developed a game for the book.
I love that. All right. And we will have the link in the show notes. So
Yep.
do not fear. All right. So the last question that I want to ask you is really a question about imposter syndrome. So I think no matter how much success we have, I think we can always get triggered, right? About, do I belong at this table? That just, even if it's momentary, that flash of, right? So I'm curious, I think starting maybe with Garrett, if it's going to come up in your life at this point, where will you feel it? And what do you then do about it?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, early on, I did have imposter syndrome and it was awkward. And so I've tried to avoid it. So I try not to put myself in situations where it even comes up. And but you're at a cocktail party or this or that. And I don't try and pretend to be the know-it-all. I mean, there's certain things that I don't know. And I know asset protection, I know corporations, I'm learning the movie business because we've made a few movies, but I'm not going to answer every question that I don't feel comfortable answering. So I guess I've outgrown it, which is very comforting.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, and I still have it a little bit just because I'm still pretty young. It was really bad when I first became a lawyer and passed the bar exam, just because I was put in a different environment where you're dealing with clients, you're drafting documents, you're not doing the things you did in law school. And so it was really bad a few years ago. But I think over time, as long as you just get experience doing things and you can use that as like a mental Rolodex, you've done this. You've spoken in front of 1,500 people now. You've given an asset protection course several times and you've been on 50 podcasts. And now you've written one book, which feels really good to have that monkey off my back. So I think it's important to just get experience while you go. And then the more experience you have, the smaller your imposter syndrome will be.
Yeah.
I still get it when I'm around other people, like in Robert Kiyosaki's circle, just because those people have accomplished so much more than I have. And so I get a little uncomfortable there. But other than that, over time, it's gotten better. And I think once you just show you have a track record and you work hard and you're humble and you're hungry, then the imposter syndrome symptoms aren't nearly as strong.
I love that. Say it again. What were the three things? You're hungry, humble, when you work hard. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. That's really good advice. Gentlemen, believe it or not, we have done it.
Thank you, Kim, for having us.
Absolutely. So it's just been such a joy and pleasure. So today I've been talking to Garrett Sutton and Ted Sutton. They have all kinds of wonderful things going on. We will put all of their links in the show notes. I would also just ask you to subscribe, you as a listener. The action that I would like you to take is to subscribe to my newsletter. It's once a week. We've gotten really good feedback on it. It's one thing, right? It's not 5 things. It's one thing every week and it's actionable. So subscribe. That's what I would say. So thank you so much for listening. I'm Kim Miller-Hershon, Kim Miller-Hershon Coaching and Consulting. You've been listening to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. Go out there and be a better human.
We're clean.